Hey there. So I'm back. Sorry, I just went for a run and I really wanted to see what happened in the next chapter. So I figured I could take a shower after we got through chapter 7 today. So I just wanted to recap chapter 6. In chapter 6, when he was kidnapped by Jesse's family, and the Tucks were trying to reassure Winnie that everything was going to be okay. And as they were racing off, they ended up passing the man in the yellow suit. And in order to kind of cover themselves or anything that might or may appear to be suspicious, they just told him that she was getting writing lessons. And at this point, the Tucks are really struggling with like how they're not sure how they're going to even explain this to Winnie, what is happening and what's going on. And Winnie is feeling very overwhelmed and she's stressed out. So as much as she didn't really want to be at home, she's not thrilled about what is happening now, and she begins to cry. And then when they tell her that she has to stay overnight, she even cries harder. But May gets out the music box, and it's there that Winnie makes that connection between the music that she's hearing that evening to the time when she heard it with her grandma, and they thought it was the elves playing. So that's where the chapter ended, and now I'm going to read chapter 7 to you. So if you could follow along while I'm reading, I think that's to your benefit and will only help you in the long run. So I'm going to get started here. Chapter 7. It was the strangest story Winnie had ever heard. She soon suspected that they had never told it before, except to each other, that she was their first real audience, for they gathered around her like children at their mother's knee, each trying to claim their attention, and sometimes they all talked at once and interrupted each other in their eagerness. 87 years before, the Tucks had come from a long way to the east, looking for a place to settle. In those days, the wood was not a wood. It was a forest, just as her grandmother had said, a forest that went on and on and on. They had thought that they would start a farm as soon as they came to the end of the trees. But the trees never seemed to end. When they came to the part that was now the wood and turned from the trail to find a camping place, they happened on the spring. It was real nice, said Jessie with a sigh. It looked just the way it does now. A clearing, lots of sunshine, that big tree with those knobby roots. We stopped and everyone took a drink, even the horse. No, said Ma, the cat didn't drink. That's important. Yes, said Miles, don't leave that out. We all had a drink except for the cat. Well, anyway, Jessie went on, the water tasted sort of strange. But we camped there overnight, and Pa carved a T on the tree trunk to mark where we'd been. And then we went on. I'm going to go ahead and scroll up here. They had come out of the forest at last. Many miles to the west, had found a thinly populated valley, had started their farm. We put up a horse for Ma and Pa, said Miles, and a little shack for Jessie and me. We figured we'd be starting families of our own pretty soon and would want our own houses. That was the first time we figured there was something peculiar, said May. Jessie fell out of a tree. I was way up in the middle, Jessie interrupted, trying to saw off some of the big branches before we cut her down. I lost my balance and I fell. He landed plumb on his head, said May with a shudder. We thought for sure he'd broke his neck, but come to find out, he didn't hurt a bit. Not long after, Miles went on. Some hunters came by one day at sunset. Excuse me. The horse was out grazing by some trees and they shot him. Mistook him for a deer, they said. Can you fancy that? But the thing is, they don't kill him. The bullet went right on through him and didn't hardly even leave a mark. Then Pa got a snake bite and Jessie ate the poison toadstools and I cut myself, said May. Remember? Slicing bread. And I'm right here if you're following along. But it was the passage of time that worried them the most. They had worked the farm, settled down, made friends, but after 10 years, then 20, they had to face the fact that there's something terribly wrong. None of them was getting any older. I was more'n 40 by then, said Miles sadly. I was married, I had 2 children, but from the looks of me, I was still 22. My wife, she finally made up her mind I'd sold my soul to the devil. She left me. She went away, and she took the children with her. I'm glad I never got married, Jessie put in. It was the same with our friends, said May. They came to pull back from us. There was about witchcraft and black magic. Well, you can't hardly blame them, but finally we had to leave the farm. We didn't know where to go. We started back the way we came, just wandering. We was like gypsies. When we got this far, it changed, of course. I thought of the tree. A lot of the trees was gone. There was people in Tree Gap. It was a new village. The road was here, but in those days it was mostly just a cow path. We went on into what was left of the wood to make a camp, and when we got to the clearing and the tree and the spring, we remembered it from before. It hadn't changed no more than we had, said Miles. And that was how we found out. Pa carved a T on the tree. Remember 20 years before? But that T was just where he'd been. That tree was just where it'd been when he done it. That tree hadn't grown one whit in all that time. It was exactly the same. And the T he carved was as fresh as if it had just been put there. Then they had remembered drinking the water. They and the horse, but not the cat. Oh, sorry. Shh. Don't do that. But not the cat. The cat had lived a long and happy life on the farm, but had died from 10 years before. So they decided at last that the source of their changelessness was the spring. Okay, so we're right up here. When we came to that conclusion, May went on. Tuck said, "That's my husband, Angus Tuck, and he said he'd had to be sure, once and for all. He took a shotgun and he pointed it at himself the best way he could, and before he could stop him, he pulled the trigger." There was a long pause. May's fingers laced together in her lap, twisted with the tension of remembering. At last she said, The shot knocked him down, went into his heart. It had to, the way he aimed, and right on through him. It scarcely even left a mark. Just like, like you shot a bullet through water. And he was just the same as he'd never done it. After that, we went sort of crazy, said Jessie, grinning at the memory. Heck, we was going to live forever. Can you picture what it felt like to find that out? But then we sat down and talked it over, said Miles. We're still talking it over, Jessie added. And we figured it'd be very bad if everyone knowed about that spring, said May. We began to see what it would mean. She peered at Winnie. Do you understand, child? That water, it stops you right where you are. If you'd had drink of it today, you'd stay a little girl forever. You'd never grow up, not ever. We don't know how it works or even why, said Miles. Okay, right here. Pa thinks it's something left over from some other plan for the way the world should be, said Jessie. Some plan that didn't work out too good. And so everything was changed, except that the spring was passed over, somehow or other. Maybe he's right. I don't know. But you see, Winnie Foster, when I told you before I was 104 years old, I was telling you the truth. But I'm really only 17. And so far as I know, I'll stay 17 till the end of the world. All right. So now we're starting to understand their secret and what that means for them and what they've been through. And I'm looking forward to reading about chapter 8. We'll see how Winnie responds to what they've just told her. All right. Thanks for listening.